Rinpoche, you spoke a moment ago about simplicity. I was wondering if you could speak a little about effortlessness in practice.
I think it all comes back to being able to understand how important it is in your life. It's about priorities. It always becomes effort-based if you think of it as something to do. This morning also we talked about it. Applied, to apply Dharma in your life or to do Dharma in your life. If you see it as that, then it becomes very effort-oriented, very deliberate, in fact. But if you take time to really understand the worth, the value, the preciousness of what it is that you are doing, then the effort is no longer so deliberate, and a much more naturalness or natural effortlessness begins to arise. And so Vajrayana tradition, and in Mahayana also, we talk about devotion, irreversible confidence in what you are doing. Irreversible confidence because you have analyzed enough to understand its value and its profoundness. So that's where you have to, as meditators, say how important is Dharma to you in your life. And you shouldn't just be satisfied and content with, oh, it's very important, that kind of an answer. But you have to explore and say, how important is it? How important? Is it more important than lying? Is it more important than being irritated? Is it more important than an aggravated behavior? Is it more important than the brusqueness with which we relate to other people? Is it more important than a moment of unawareness that so easily comes? How valuable is it? How important it is? You never walk out of your house without your car keys and your cell phone, for example, isn't it? You never forget that. But those are important things, and therefore you don't forget. Likewise, Dharma is something that has to be more important than car keys and cell phone.
Can you talk specifically about effortless in meditation practice?
Formal meditation, it's the same thing. There's no difference at all. If you think that the method is important, you will find it always very effortful. If you find that the method that you are doing is only to better your mind, to really train your own mind, then that will become effortless. I think yesterday we talked about the hammer and nail. Were you here yesterday? No. So we talked about the hammer and nail. So a hammer and nail is a useful tool to hang a picture on the wall. But then if the hammer and nail is something that preoccupies your mind a lot, then you have to learn a lot of skill about how to use the hammer, how to use the nail, and so on and so forth. You begin to create a manual on how to best use the hammer and how to best use the hammer and nail and so on and so forth, isn't it? But if you understand the methods of the practices are not so much the method itself, but that the method should always be applied to making better and more flexible, more vast, more open your own mind, then you will find that the effort in method is not so much necessary as much as however you do it. For example, these days sometimes meditators worry so much about exact form. Should it be on the right? Should it be in the left? Should it be on the third level? Should it be on the second level? And the exactness of, does it have to be red wine? Is the white wine? Or is it the big one? Is it the small one? And so on and so forth. To some degree, in terms of discipline and learning the various methods, you have to learn them accurately. But on the other hand, when you're so preoccupied with the exactness of the method itself that you never apply the method to why it was derived in the first place. Why was that method given to us in the first place? Where it should be the healing medicine within our own mind, curing us from the disease of kleshas, and the kleshas are never purified, but you're very exact with all the methods, then it takes time, it takes a lot of energy, and everything becomes very effortful. But look at the yogis of our times. In the history of Buddhism, or at least the history of Tibetan Buddhism, you will find that Buddhism survived in its essence and the purity of its essence in Tibet, mainly because of the efforts of the Mahasiddhas and the yogis. Major teachers, or the very well-known great teachers, their enlightened activity has been so great in terms of inspiring and bringing together the Sangha and continuity of the wheel of Dharma to be flowed. But authenticity of the practice, if you're going to look for it, You cannot find it in the larger monasteries. You'll always find it in the heart of the yogis. And yogis never have right methods. Isn't it?
It seems that there has to be effort in terms of getting ourselves to do the practice. But at that point,
why don't you ask me the question you want to ask me?
Okay, what I'm trying to get at is the whole thing of not letting your mind manipulate the practice. So, people have used the word surrender or whatever, but letting go of the mind manipulation of the practice and letting the practice just work on your mind.
Without training the mind or without the mind watching itself carefully, alone being true to the method is not going to be helpful. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
the subtle, what you were talking about before, the subtle tricks of ego.
There are sometimes we say things like that.
How we manipulate the Dharma practice, how the ignorance and ego manipulation of the Dharma practice, meditation, whatever methods we have, is very tricky. And but just doing the form itself.
Sometimes. I'm not saying particularly, this is not maybe what you mean, but it just reminded me of something that commonly happens. And we say something like, if I'm true to my meditation, then the energy of the realized mind will dawn by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in that?
I don't, that's the whole problem. Because if I'm true to my meditation,
should it happen by its own self?
Well, that's just ego manipulation to say. I guess it comes back to faith and devotion.
Some people say that too. If I'm very devoted to what I'm doing, that the enlightenment should just happen.
But that's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work because there's expectation.
Yeah.
If you have expectation, you have to have effort. Beyond expectation, then effortless.
Mm-hmm. Because for the mind to free itself, it has to get free of effort too.
Yes. You cannot, no matter how clever we are in meditation, we cannot hide subtle agendas. If there's an agenda, if there is an expectation, if there's a result that we hope, there's immediate duality. Isn't it? There is doer and getter, someone who gets it. And therefore, in that way, everything is dependent upon effort. It requires effort. Effortless from that perspective is where spontaneity is what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But spontaneous nature is always impeded by expectations. When expectation and any kind of grasping itself falls apart, where would there be the need to have any effort anywhere at that moment? Okay?
Right. Yeah, so I'll basically...
Don't wait.
Right. But
be effortful.
But
to you, I will say is be effortful.
Right. But to do the practice and then trust that it's going to disrupt the ego manipulation.
If you do the practice, what do you want from it? What do you expect it to give you?
I think it comes down to just having nothing better to do, frankly, like you said.
Yes.
I mean,
in that way, it's a formal meditation that would require lots of examination, lots of analysis. Therefore, it requires effort.
Right.
And where you exert effort, there's always always a spontaneous result in accordance to the effort that you do put in. But what would be the result?
We don't know till it happens.
What?
We don't know till it happens, right?
But theoretically speaking, what would you say? If you were really effortful in analytical meditation, what would be the results that you would gain from that effort of analysis?
Experience of non-duality and loosening of the ego grasping, and then all those experiences go with it.
And so when you get the result, that gives you the glimpse and the taste of, oh, there's nothing to grasp to. That then loosens a little bit the effort that you do exert in. So the result becomes cause. Then the cause further deepens so that the distance between the cause and the result slowly begin to close in, where natural effortlessness is simply where you find there was neither a cause nor a result to expect from the cause.